Mr. Anders Chydenius, often his first name or sometimes his first name is Finnicized to Antti, was born in the northeastern Finnish town of Sotkamo in February 1729 and died in the western Finnish coastal city of Gamla-Karleby or Kokkola in February 1803. He was a Swedish-Finnish priest and an ecclesiastical member of the Riksdag, the Finnish parliament, contemporary known as the leading classical liberal of Nordic history. He studied under a famous Swedish-Finnish botanist and scientist Per Kalm at the Royal Academy or University of Turku. He became a priest and an Enlightenment philosopher. He first served in the Swedish Riksdag or Parliament from 1765 to 1766 as a member of the CAP party that favored a conciliatory policy toward Russia. He championed Sweden's first Freedom of the Press Act, the most liberal in the world at that time, along with those of Great Britain and the 7 united provinces of the Netherlands, I think. He vehemently opposed the extreme interventionist policies of mercantilism preached by the previously predominant Hat Party since decades, and he was ultimately then coerced into retirement for his criticism of the CAP administration's radical deregulation policies and their social and political consequences. Following the absolutist coup d'etat of the Swedish King Gustav III in 1772, which meant the end of parliamentary rule in Sweden proper for over 90 years, Chydenius briefly returned to prominence and worked to increase civil liberties and economic freedom as part of Gustav's doctrine of enlightened despotism, and contributed the abolition of torture as a means of interrogation, the limitation of capital punishment, and the legalization of Jewish and Catholic immigration under some restrictions into Sweden. Ultimately, the king's increasingly autocratic position brought Chydenius out of favor again, and he retired to private life in Ostrobothnia, Western Finland, where he died at age 73. He was an early pioneer also by international standards and proponent of economic liberalism, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and migration, writing a pamphlet on the invisible hand a decade before the publication of the Scottish economist Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations, and he was one of the first comprehensive philosophers of liberalism. He also engaged in farming and in medicine. He believed that free state, private ownership, and individual freedom went together. He said, or wrote, and I quote, "Inhabitants could choose whatever profession, freedom of trade would be complete, there would be no privileges, regulation, or taxes, bureaucracy would be non-existent, and the only officer would be a judge who would oversee that no one's rights would be suppressed."